So, Joe Feeney, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
And I've just realised how unbelievably Irish I am today. I'm wearing a green T-shirt with a shamrock on it, and I'm hungover. So
That's perfect.
I'm such a bad character that I think this go Inferno book me.
Now, if you got into a bar fight and then got into a fight with your girlfriend or something the night before, then you could be even more Irish.
Oh well, I would never argue with my girl because she's a wonderful person. I would never say anything wrong about that cunt ever.
No, never. Of course not.
She's a wonderful bitch.
I have little. It's funny. I have little initials for my wife, and she knows them, so I'm not getting away with anything. But since I won't dare call her a bitch or a cunt or a whore or anything, I'll call her BW. I'll be like, you fucking BW, bitch whore. W whore bitch. WBC's whore bitch cunt. Like, so I can get away with that. The actual words, I might lose a tooth or two, but I can get away with the initials.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I'm talking about her, I happen to mention UFC, and she's like, "Are you talking about MMA?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because YOU, and then
fucking, I got you. You fucking
cook.
Nice.
So let's talk about wrestling, Joe.
Sure thing.
What's your take on the whole CM Punk Colt Cabana thing?
Wow. I started getting into podcasts via Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling, and probably the first episode he did, which was with CM Punk, and then the 100th he did was with Punk. So I was a big CM Punk fan, and I actually went to meet Colt at a wrestling show just because I enjoyed his podcast so much. I wasn't that big on doing that, the meet and greets or the pictures, but Colt, I like to show so much that I went out of my way to do it. Met him at a show in Philly. I think it's a shame, and I think money can drive people nuts. They always say, once there's a death in the family, if there's any money involved, you're going to start seeing people start squabbling and fighting, and it always turns into that. In this case, from what I understand, in a text or whatever, Punk said to Cabana, "I got you when it comes to these legal funds." Well, then they must have gotten some kind of disagreement, and Punk said, "Now you're on your own." And Colt's taking that as a verbal contract. This guy said he's going to pay my legal fees. I have six figures in legal fees. And to recoup what I think I was owed, I have to sue him. And it's just a shame to see a friendship end like that over money. And though I can understand Cabana's point, because that's a lot of I can curse, right?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of fucking money. And if he was depending on his friend who's significantly wealthier to pick up the tab, based off a case that was more or less due to his friend's statements on his show, I understand it. I just think it sucks,
The way I see it, it's the equivalent of just say it's me and you going out for the night, and I go start a fight with someone, and I get you involved, and then I run off while you get beat up.
Yeah. Leave me holding the bag. Yeah. I could see it like that, especially. I don't know. It's a funny deal, and it's a funny world where now, like, a text message can be used as evidence in a court of law too. It could be used for multiple cases. And they can subpoena your records and all this stuff. So, I'm assuming it's basically going to be a case based off text messages and whatever else, emails. Not so much verbal conversation, but these digital conversations we have now.
But I've just like with CM Punk, I never really liked the guy. I always thought he was kind of overrated. Not that he didn't have great matches, but he's been. The more you learn about him, the more he's exposed as a dick. And the fact that he went into the UFC, and the day he didn't shake Mickey Gall's hand at the weigh-in, that's when I thought, that's a dick.
Yeah, and he was certainly exposed there. And being a fan, you want to believe in the dream. You want to see your guy, which at one point he was, one of my top favorites. You want to see him succeed. That Gall fight was punishing, but his last fight, I already forgot the guy's name that beat him. So,
Mike Jackson or something.
Mike Jackson, yeah. How can I forget that? It's too easy. But that was 15 minutes of just a pummeling and just me cringing and like, oh my God, I'm like Adrian, like stop, or Apollo Creed's wife, stop the fight, like Jesus Christ, he was getting his ass whooped. It was. I think Rogan just called it an embarrassment or something like that, because that's what it was. It was embarrassing to see what went down in the octagon that night.
And the thing about CM Punk is he is going to come back to wrestling, and he's going to become exactly what he rebelled against in the first place. Like, he's going to be that part-timer getting the main spots in the cards for like triple the money of everyone else. He's basically the wrestling version of Howard Stern.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started on that. But with Punk, I think I could see something different. You know why? Because he could come back to WWE, and I think, we mentioned this Cabana lawsuit now, and the fact that he's probably not going to fight again, so he can't depend on MMA income. He might lose six figures or more if he loses this lawsuit. He's probably going to need some wrestling income. So he could go to WWE and return, kind of tail between the legs and take the big money and maybe get the main event of WrestleMania. I don't know. I think he's lost a lot of credibility anyways as a casual fans. But the one thing is, you can make a lot of money outside of WWE now. If you look at the All In Chicago, Ring of Honor, New Japan just sold out Madison Square Garden without even announcing a name on the card. There's money to be made outside of that bubble. So if he either gets the itch or he needs the money, there's options. He could go to New Japan and Ring of Honor. You know what I mean?
Would you say that these days that wrestling is bigger than MMA?
That's interesting. I'd say they're close to they're closer to even right now, because UFC's having difficulty drawing pay-per-view buys. WWE's TV ratings are down, but then again, their stock price is astronomical. I had some WWE stock about a year and a half ago, and I think I bought it at like $14 and sold it at $22 and thought I was a genius. And now it's worth $80 a share, and it's not like it would have made me $1 million. It would have made me some money. I made a few $100s on my sale, but I just can't believe it went that high. And they have the deal with Fox. Like, as far as corporately, if that's a word, and business wise,
that sounds like a Disco Inferno character, the evil businessman.
Business Lee. And UFC, they just were sold in a huge deal to a big conglomerate. So both companies have nothing to worry about. As far as mainstream popularity, probably UFC, because people are always going to go for the quote real sport, and Connor's coming back, and there's Brock's coming in, so the popularity is probably only going to go up for them.
I shouldn't really be saying this online, but I have a family member who works in like a concert promotion company over here.
Yeah.
She told me that there's already been talks about a UFC event, likely a Conor McGregor headliner.
Ooh.
Croke Park.
Oh boy.
I don't know if you've ever been there. It holds from 85 to 90,000 people.
And it'll fill up 100% too.
Oh God! But then if he doesn't win, that's where, like, if McGregor loses the Khabib, they could do that Croke Park show with Diaz.
Yeah,
it could be great. But I personally think that wrestling as a whole is on up. Like, as you say, with Madison Square Garden, with All In, with the fact that the indie scene, like, I don't know if you've heard of ICW wrestling in Scotland.
Insane Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, and they're doing arena shows quite often.
Yeah.
So but then people like Bellator generally aren't doing massive shows.
Yeah.
Randy Orton has recently been called out for doing a dick handshake thing.
Yeah.
Dick Handshake is also a Disco Inferno character. It's the evil pranker.
Right.
Do you think it's ridiculous that Randy Orton would be getting called out now for doing a dick handshake, yet he's been an arsehole for decades?
Yeah. When I first saw the headline that was like Randy Orton in possible hot water, whatever it said, I thought it was going to be related to one of those stories you hear about him shitting in a chick's purse, or trash in a room, or something. Some of the old stories used to hear about him. Now, I remember that dick handshake story because Court Bauer told it on MLW Radio, which is another one of the first podcasts I started listening to. Had Conan on it, Court Bauer, who promotes Major League Wrestling, and MSL, who's also involved in Major League Wrestling. Court Bauer was a WWE writer. He's the guy the story's about. He would see Randy do that to incoming writers, where he would, pull his dick out and I don't know, caress it. I don't know what he's doing. Shake it at them. And then he's got dick sweat on his hand, and hey, what's up? I'm Randy Orton. Oh, what are you going to big time me?
Is Dick Sweat also a Disco Inferno character, the evil gym rat?
Yeah, or it could be Dick S. Wet also, one of them. Ball Sweat would be his tag team partner, of course.
Oh, God.
I think that definitely sounds like horrifying harassment on the job. But at the same time, wrestling always had this weird culture of its own with ribbing and some of the ribs were crazy shit where, you know, you would get drugged and your eyebrows shaved, and that's on the lighter side of things, you know? So it's not appropriate, but it almost was more like a test too. Like, is this guy fucking square? Is he gonna take the joke, or is he just gonna say fuck it and shake my hand? I bet you if you shake the guy's hand, you know, you might get your balls busted, but he'd probably be like, all right, this guy's cool. I'm not gonna worry about him. He's not fucking stuck up. He's not square. He'd be cool to be on the road with because he don't give a fuck, you know? I think it was more a test. I don't know. And it is silly to bring it up, you know, 10 years later or whatever it is, maybe longer.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you don't call somebody no, for what they've done, you can't go, hey, 9 years ago I was completely offended, and then this whole pussy social justice warrior stuff's all like, I'm offended on behalf of him.
Yeah. Well, and the guy that told the story, like I said, Court Bauer, even when he told it kind of in a joking, what the fuck manner, not like he was scared, he was offended. It was more like this guy's out of control, that kind of story, you know. But it's I don't know, in today's day and age where, you know, things that you do 15, 20 years ago, they can bite you. And I know a lot of people in wrestling should probably be concerned that things from the past can come back and haunt them, you know?
Vince McMahon must be constantly shitting himself like, God damn it, that was years ago. Why am I paying for my cut now?
There was like a brief like tremor because he had a charge against him for exposing himself or something in a tanning salon, and it was dropped very quickly. And then a reporter unearthed it again recently, like earlier this year, and you saw it on like maybe Deadspin.com and maybe even a little mention in the New York Times, and you never heard of it again. It wasn't like it was on, you know, all the news channels. Certain stories, they just get squashed, man, if people have enough power. And if they, hate to get all conspiracy, but if they, being the media and stuff, want stories to be squashed, they'll be squashed. And if they want them to blow up, they'll blow up like Harvey Weinstein.
Did you ever see the video? Do you remember WWE.com used to do videos just for the website?
Yes.
There was a thing when he was with Candice Michelle, and Vince was doing a segment with her, and in it he improvised. He put his hand up the back of her skirt and grabbed her arse, and you could visibly see her being like, "What are you doing?"
Oh my god! Yeah, no, I never saw that, but I always it's his shit was always cringeworthy anyway. Whether it was with Trish or Candice Michelle or Stacy Keibler or Victoria, whichever ones he had, he called them Vince's Devils or whatever. Him with the divas at the time was just a Sable. It's just always cringeworthy, man. Everyone knows you're the boss. Everyone knows you got your hand writing this shit, and you're always writing to have yourself hooking up or grabbing the chicks. Like, it's just always a little, you know, tawdry, if you will.
One of my genuine favorite podcasts in the world, and I'm not just saying this because you're on, is Keeping It 100 with it's obviously yourself, Conan, and that other guy. I can't remember his name. It's Dick Sweater, that disco dancer or something. It's something like John Travolta. That's who it is. Sorry, John Travolta.
Yeah, he used to be on TV 20 years ago.
I didn't watch. But the thing I've always got to wonder was all that stuff with Conan and KG. Was that legit? Like, is that because that was so? Because KG was such a liberal that it was almost fake.
I came on board and I had followed Conan from MLW to Keeping It 100, and legitimately found KG to be like reprehensibly annoying, and tweeted at him a couple of times, busting his balls about the show, which he then blocked me. And I remained blocked from then until now. It's, you know, 3 years ago, whatever, till now. So long story short, Conan knew me from being an MLW fan and sending in emails and occasionally trying to get him on Creative Control on my podcast, which he would always say no. But he knew that I edited my show, I produced it, I put it out, I did all this. And he wanted to replace KG. KG was a headache as a producer, he would say. He was just, you know, very bitchy and complained, and the show was always late and all this stuff. So I said, fuck yeah, I'll take the opportunity. So he brought me on. KG already didn't like me because I would fuck with him on Twitter. And but eventually he and I got along, I thought. But I'm kind of telling a long story here. So long story short, those guys did not get along. That was legit. And some of the, like, behind the scenes or in group texts or preparing for the show was exactly the same as what you heard on the air, if not worse. So, and it continues, and there's been no thawing or anything. And I think people thought by now he might have popped on for a guest spot or like a surprise. Nothing of the sort has ever been discussed as far as I know. But I know that we'll all be in Chicago for StarCast. So perhaps we can say hello. There might be some kind of reunion or something, but I highly doubt it. But yeah, those guys, it was oil and water, and it took Conan about 30 episodes of the show to replace him with me. So, and now we're on episode 112, so I've been around for 90 episodes.
Well, if I could say from a fan's perspective that don't bring KG back, maybe for a segment and then never again. Because the thing about KG was nuts is like politically, I would agree with him. Like, I'm not I don't like bigotry or racism, and I would be kind of like a feminist and all this stuff. But KG was such a dick, and that, like, just so you were talking about Trump, and he would give his 17-minute long side of an opinion, and then if somebody else spoke, KG would instantly interrupt them and instantly talk over them. It's like, that's not a fucking fair debate.
Yeah. See, I feel like he and I, we weren't totally opposite politically, although I've found as I've gotten older that I skew closer to right wing, but I'm kind of a moderate. But what I know is that I of course I'm against racism and bigotry and all that stuff. But as a white American male, I would never presume to speak for a black male or a female or anyone that's not any other race or anything like that. And people that do that tend to drive me crazy, And KG's one of those people, and there's a lot of them now that presume to speak for other races or sexes. Maybe to me, it comes across like they think they can't take care of themselves, and it almost comes across as pandering and insulting. Even
it's that white American liberals get more offended by racism than actual African Americans. It's insane.
Yes, 100% correct. 100%.
Do you think it's also 100% correct to say, all joking aside, that Disco Inferno is a massively underrated wrestler?
Yes, and I've said a lot. I've said on the show. I've tweeted it. There was a tweet the other day. What was your favorite match of the old WCW Nitro that other people might not know about or something? I immediately answered Disco Inferno versus Perry Saturn, and someone that listens to the show tweeted at me like, "Oh, look at you kissing Disco's ass," and I tweeted back. I was like, "No, I legitimately have said that to DI. I've said it on shows and stuff. I think DI and looking back at stuff just to watch for fun and because I'm on the show with those guys now and posting stuff on the Keeping It 100 Facebook. Yeah, DI was great, man. He really was, and I'm sure people will hear this and think I'm kissing his ass, but the guy could sell. He didn't have a problem being, they call it showing your ass or whatever, being the joke, he had no problem with it. He was a great performer.
And also, they had that great match. I think it was Spring Stampede '99, where it was Disco versus Conan, and it was a great match. Unless I've got that completely wrong.
They were on pay-per-view a few times, and those guys they definitely had great chemistry. And another thing people don't remember, and it's funny because Disco on Keeping It 100 now will make fun of lucha or Japanese wrestling and stuff like that, and that's great. But if you look back, when he wrestled as in the Cruiserweight division, he had great matches with Hughezy, Kidman, Psychosis. Like, he could do that too. He could work with those guys, and he could work with a Chris Benoit or, a Dean Malenko or Conan or Scott Hall. Like, if you look back, he really has a great body of work. And, like I said, people think that's just me going, but I mean, I do believe that.
But I defend him a lot because a lot of people say, "Oh, Disco was never a draw." It's like, well, he was never given that. He was never put in that position, so you can't say if he was a draw or not.
When I look at old Nitros and specifically at DI's matches, once his music hits and they pan the crowd, everyone's dancing, everyone's cheering or booing, and that's really what it's all about. And at that time, WCW drew as a whole. You know what I mean? So who's to say? And
plus, I caught the disco fever young. I've dealt with it the whole life. I'm loud, proud, over here. Get used to it.
Yeah. We'll have to. We would have to set up a live Keeping It 100 in Ireland. That would be tremendous.
Oh, I see if that happens. I will get you guys so hammered drunk you wouldn't believe it. I know some places.
Yeah, I'll have to go the Conrad Thompson route because it seems like he knows how to get venues booked and to promote, and that's not something I'm very experienced with. But I know he and Bruce are going to fucking Australia. They went to England. Like, it's nuts. Like to be able to do all that from a podcast.
Yeah, they're coming to Belfast in December, or as Bruce calls it, Belfast.
Oh, that's great. See, those guys, man, they're getting around. That is awesome. All that from a podcast talking about old wrestling. Like, I know that their minds are blown, and my mind is blown as well. Even though it's a great show, it's like, wow, how did they get all this from just talking old wrestling stories. You know, it's pretty fantastic.
Do you think that there's some wrestling podcasts that are kind of boring?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny, and I don't even think mine's that good. So I'll put myself on that list. But like, I don't listen that much anymore. And Conan busts my chops because we'll go to talk about Raw, and he'll be like, you know, Joe, did you watch Raw? And I'm like, not really. Like, you know, you work on a wrestling show. Could you watch the wrestling product? So I mean, when I actually watched regularly, like I listened to Wrestling Observer or a little bit of Russo, a little more Austin at the time, Jericho when he was in the company, because I was watching more wrestling. Now, geez, I listen to 83 Weeks and Something to Wrestle With a little bit, which I also, you know, produce and edit. So I listen to them anyway, but I would listen to them if I wasn't working on them. I still put on Keeping It 100 to see how the show flows. Jericho's show, and that's it, man. And I used to have a whole library on my podcasting full of wrestling shows. I've been listening recently to a show called Last Podcast on the Left, and what they do is they go through history, American history, world history, criminals, crazy cult stories. I was listening to a whole series on Jim Jones, and then Scientology, and then Ted Bundy. Like I was going through all. It's just listening to wrestling get reviewed anymore. It doesn't do it for me.
It's hard to say because like Stone Cold Steve Austin's my all-time favorite wrestler, but he's boring now. And because I always do the thing where he's 3 stock conversation topics, regardless of what he's asked. Like you could say, "So Steve, do you like sandwiches?" And he'd be like, "Well, I remember when Owen dropped me on my head. I knew that there was a problem."
That's pretty good.
Or just, "I should have done the match with Lesnar, took time off, and that would have been it." And then it's like, Steve, it's just, you're telling the story again.
Yeah. And I think he's the greatest overall of all time when it comes to like in-ring, drawing, interviews. When you put all that shit in one package, like I think Austin's just number one on my list. And his Blu-ray that came out a few years ago was like maybe That's the Bottom Line or something, whatever it was. He told all those stories on that, and when you first hear them, I thought it was one of the best Blu-rays WWE ever did. But you're right, you hear those stories, or you hear about how he wasn't getting along with the NWO when they were there, or Scott Hall, or you hear about Pillman, who I am a huge fan of. But yeah, you're right. There is only so many stories you can tell. I haven't listened in a while, but I didn't know that he was getting like very repetitive. You know, all I know is he always had his what's Ted Fowler to him, like his like you know,
his hunting buddy.
Yeah. So if it was like a Ted Fowler episode or a Steve's girlfriend episode, I skipped them, and that was when I was listening to it regularly.
I even skipped the shoots. Like you see, when I see Shawn Michaels being interviewed,
yeah,
I just think, oh God, because if he didn't say, you know, his interviews would be 4 minutes long, but then they're always 2 hours long. You know. Yeah, no, you know, and it's like, oh no, God.
But I think Jericho there you go. You know, he gets the best interviews out of people, man. He really does, and he always has. You know, it'll be like as soon as Brian comes back from the neck injury, bam, Jericho's got him. Like he's very timely with his interviews. You know, and I don't know how much WWE leeway he'll have as the days go by with this cruise coming up and working with Ring of Honor and Impact and New Japan. It sounds like he has a good relationship over there, but if he keeps freelancing, I don't know if he's always going to have that access. And that's just me guessing. But his interviews are always great. His interview with Don Callis, Cyrus, a few years ago, before Cyrus was back in the business at all, was one of the best interviews he ever did.
Jericho's it's one of the few podcasts I'll listen to every episode, even if I don't know the guest. Like he had that bitch Snooki from Jersey Shore on.
Oh my God!
Actually, good. That awful hair.
Was it? I missed that one.
How could you miss that, Joe? What are you wasting your life? Speaking of wasting, what do you think of all these NXT people who are brought up and then like instantly buried within 10 days?
I stopped watching NXT too. You know what? When I watched NXT, it was Owens, it was Zayn, it was Balor, Joe came in, and it was like you know, even Enzo and Cass were still there, and the Ascension, the Ascension, and then the who am I thinking of? The two bald, like stout guys. What the tag team? What do they call it?
You mean those things that are in Charlotte Flair's top?
No. God, I think someone wanted to call them the Mechanics, but then they're not called the Throwbacks. They're called something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to love NXT, and then all the people that I liked to watch on NXT came up. And you're right. I just watched Kevin Owens get squashed on SummerSlam. I don't like what they've done with Finn Balor. I didn't like. I kind of liked when Zayn turned heel, and they're doing good things with Joe. But you're right. There's a lot of NXT talent that comes up that was doing great things down there, and it comes up and doesn't, and they just they fall by the wayside. I mean, Tyler Breeze was tremendous in NXT, and what have they ever really done with him? Besides make him a comedy sideshow character, which there's a place for.
And my whole thing as well is with like Apollo Crews. Like if you go back to the old SmackDown games and you used to do the Create a Wrestler,
yeah,
that would be exactly what I would design a wrestler to be. They're young, they're muscular, they're in shape, they're handsome, they're athletic, they're black. That's the liberal side of me. And but he's just come up and they have done nothing with him for nearly 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah,
and I just can't work it out.
Not only is he huge, but he's hugely athletic, and it just seems like they have him as this smiling baby face, And I mean, the last I was watching, I mean, something could have changed, but it just didn't seem like they had too much faith in giving him any kind of depth.
What's your take on the rise of Impact Wrestling? Because for me, like I've always watched it, even when I thought it was bad, but I think it's the best wrestling on TV at the minute.
I agree, and I'm not just saying that because Conan works there, because Cyrus is an executive, or it's the only program that I DVR and watch. And that's only been for 4 to 6 weeks because I've really been out of the loop. I just haven't found anything to be interested in. But Impact, Aries is great. They're doing great stuff with Scarlett Bordeaux. I think I'm saying her name right. Kevin Cross, I enjoy. The LAX versus OG's feud. I think Eddie Kingston has been like money and a half on television. And their last pay-per-view from top to bottom was amazing. Like, yeah, I'm really happy with Impact, and I want to watch wrestling. I've been a fan of wrestling I'm 36 years old since 1986 or something like that. I've watched with some breaks, but for a long time. So I want good programming to watch. I'm not watching it because I'm a hater. I'm not watching a lot of wrestling because it's just not doing it for me. But Impact these days really does keep my interest.
But the thing I love about Impact is they have this thing that I honestly think if WWE did it, they would be like beloved. Where Impact has no problem at all turning people heel or face depending on crowd reaction. Like look at LAX, they were heels and they got really over, and now they were turned babyface straight away. Broken Matt Hardy was turned babyface, and I hear they just turned my future ex-girlfriend Tessa Blanchard babyface as well.
I thought she was doing well as a heel too. She had that do I want to say bitch face? I don't know, maybe. But I like that she had the attitude for it,
Yeah, but I think it's because she's so good at being a heel, that then makes people like her. So then she starts getting cheered. So TNA are like, well, make her a badass woman babyface instead of an evil heel.
I just honestly think that Don Callis, Cyrus, and Scott D'Amore really know what they're doing. Even when Scott D'Amore was booking for Impact, I think it was like the mid 2000s. That was like a time period that people looked at and were like, wow, they're using the young talent. They're pushing the X division, and people really liked his time booking there. And I think he was replaced by Dusty or something like that. But and Don Callis was gone for 15 plus years, but he's a smart guy and he really gets it. And you can see it on their TV show. I mean, everything is different. It's like that pay-per-view. They had 3 or 4 matches that could just be classified as hardcore matches. There was weapons in a lot of matches. There was blood. There was this and that. There was fighting outside the ring. But somehow each match had a different flavor and a different type of finish. And I just thought that was great.
And the other one of the main things I love about Impact is Conan is so high on the air. Like I've always said, Conan hits the bong harder than the Undertaker's entrance to WrestleMania. Speaking of Tessa Blanchard and women's wrestling, do you think that the Evolution pay-per-view is a dud waiting to happen?
I'm a big Ronda Rousey fan. I think she's done very well. I think it depends, and I don't expect her to carry a whole show. I think it depends on how they use her. Maybe if they went Ronda and Charlotte, which I think it's too soon. They'll probably do it at Mania. So you'll probably see Ronda, and I know Trish Stratus is going to be involved somehow. Charlotte's great. Becky Lynch cut a motherfucker of a promo on Tuesday. It was awesome. And who else am I thinking of? There's good women talent there. There really is. But even that Charlotte, Becky, and Carmella match, it seemed very clunky to me, and I was surprised. And I was like, maybe it's there, because Charlotte's still a kid. She's only been around 4 years or so, and Carmella's the same way. I mean, maybe age-wise, I think Charlotte's like 31 or something like that, but she hasn't been around that long. I know Becky was probably the veteran in that match. It was surprisingly clunky to me, and it just made me again wonder, like, are they going to be able to do this show? I think it could be very much hit or miss with no middle ground.
My problem with Evolution is you can't just put on 13 matches and expect it to be a good show. Like, what you need is 13 storylines.
Yeah.
Like if you and I booked WrestleMania, we can't just say, right, first match, Shawn Michaels versus the Rock, then we'll do Jericho versus Benoit and Austin versus Goldberg and all this shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how do you build the story? And that's going back to, again, the Impact, where, as you mentioned, that LAX versus OG storyline, that was unfucking believable.
Yeah. And I'm hoping it's not over, because not only did I think Eddie Kingston was just magic, but I've always been a big Homicide fan as well. And I think it's amazing that these kids that Conan brought in as the new LAX, he's only been back on that TV for maybe 14 months or something. 14 months later, these two kids are like one of the most popular tag teams on the indies and one of the best teams in wrestling altogether. And I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, like, and especially to have like a veteran. Conan is he's like one of the few know-it-alls that actually knows it all.
Yeah.
So like, who better to lead a bunch of youngsters than him?
Yeah, and it's like he's got the golden touch. It's like I was saying to my wife last night, just in like in a random conversation, like if Conan gives you like the nod, like if Conan tells someone in the business, this guy's got it, I can see it in this guy. Like his word goes very far. And Santana and Ortiz, that's who he chose to come in as this new version of LAX, and it's just clicked ever since.
And just as we're wrapping up here, Joe, of course, about a week or two ago, we lost the brilliant Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Jim Neidhart match?
I love the Hart Foundation. It's funny because I said if I was to make my list, Austin would be the #1 overall pro wrestler of all time, and I think the Hart Foundation is the #1 overall tag team of all time, and that's probably heresy to people that like Anderson and Blanchard or the Road Warriors or whatever. But I was a Hart Foundation guy. I was always a Brett guy, and Anvil being a member of the Hart Foundation, their match with Demolition at SummerSlam 1990
yes,
would be my favorite. And later on, Jim wasn't as mobile. And later in WCW wasn't his best work, but when you see those Hart Foundation matches with him slingshotting into the ring and shit, dude could move for a big cat. He really could, and he was very talented, and he was a big part of that latter day Hart Foundation in '97 as well. So yeah, it was a big loss.
And I gotta say that, see, when Natalia came out wearing his jacket at SummerSlam, that actually caught me up a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? Ronda's speech and then the Anvil video choked me up a little bit, and I had just lost my mom a few months ago, so it felt a weird feeling. But yeah, the video was tough. The video was definitely tough.
And I've actually got some bad news for you, Joe.
What's up?
I heard online that Disco has formed a gang of people, and they're coming after you and Conan.
Oh shit!
And I happen to hear a list of some names. Sue Peanut, she's an evil lawyer. You get Eve L. She's the babyface Satanist. PL Driver. He's the evil neck bumper.
Yes.
Dix Go. He's the gay dancer.
Of course.
And then there's a pair of brothers from England that are coming after you guys. Isaac and Lou Skunt.
I like Isaac better than Lou's.
Yeah. And
before we wrap up, let me ask you. I was getting hints from you. So, is there an issue with Guns N' Roses that I should know about?
That fucking band.
Oh man, tell me that you were in the building in what 2010 or something, was it 2012? No, 2010, I think, when he walked off stage in Dublin.
No, it's even more recent than that.
Mm-hmm.
I went to. Oh, by the way, the Skunt brothers have a sister, Anita.
Yes.
So yeah, I went to see Guns N' Roses at Slane Castle last summer.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait. You know, it's this band I love. Slash is back, Duff's back. Slane Castle, it's this enormous venue in Ireland. We were all going down to camp out the night before a tailgate party.
Yes.
And you basically just drink your balls off for 2 days straight and whatever else. I'm not going to go into detail. But so we're all there the day before. We've got the barbecue grill going. We're drinking the whiskey. We're meeting new people. We're having a party. We hear It's So Easy kick in at full volume. And we're like, who's playing that? And it was from the actual venue that we were near.
Yeah.
And so they then went into the whole set from start to finish. It was about 3.5 hours. And we're thinking, this is unbelievable. We got to hear the whole sound check. The next day when we go to see the show, it was exactly that sound check where they had it so rehearsed and so tied down that it's like, oh, this isn't a band anymore. This is a play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, with big bands like that, when they have the specific moments for the pyro to go off and for the, all right, it's time for Axl to take a break. It's time for Slash to solo. It's time for. I saw them in various incarnations, man, because I'm a big fan. I saw them when there was no Slash, when Bumblefoot was in there and DJ Ashba, and I was happy to see Slash come back, even though I had to bury him for years because I was an Axl guy. But when he came back, I've seen them 3 times since this, and the set list is very similar. And they just try to sprinkle in some different shit. But you're always and what people, they only had 4 albums. You know what I mean? So you're gonna hear the same stuff. But I get what you're saying. It can be like I can time my bathroom breaks. Like I'll be like, okay, there's this. Now they're gonna play Double Talk and Jive. All right, I'm gonna go take a piss. And that's fine. I mean, I've had some great times in the past few years at their shows.
Yeah, but for me, it was that they played 5 or 6 covers, but didn't play Garden of Eden, and I thought that is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's tough, and there's some other stuff that people would love to hear, like, Bad Obsession was a great cutoff, Use Your Illusion 1, and Dead Horse, and things like that. I did some of the covers, man. I will, like I said, take my piss break, but they've been playing The Seeker for several years, and I've always fucking popped for that. I think they do a great version of that.
It is great, but it's like my whole thing is bands should only play covers after, for encores, not in part of the main set.
Yeah. Were they still doing Black Hole Sun? I know they started doing it after Cornell died.
Yeah, that was actually the show they debuted at Slane. Right.
Yeah, you know what? That was an awesome looking venue. I'm such a hardcore fan. I'll check what they're up to, and I'll watch some videos almost from every show. I just remember seeing that venue and going like, "That's fucking awesome!" Like I would have loved to have been there, especially being in Ireland.
Yeah, there was something like 95,000 people there, and that venue can go up to 132,000.
Jeez.
And I'm usually the drunkest, and that's not an exaggeration.
I can't imagine being at a show with that many people and like being in the standing play. Like, how the fuck do you get to the bathroom? Like, Jesus Christ.
Usually, people either just hold on to it or piss themselves because you're already dirty from camping out the night before.
Yeah, or pissing a bottle or something.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, Joe, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. Like I said, my schedule had been changing crazy for the past few weeks and stuff, but I'm real happy that we did this.